Another unique value that we have in JavaScript is called a none, not a number, not a number. So if an expression does some nonsense computation, such as a times 2, here is an example. If I go to inspect and then go to the console and basically do something like let x equal this. So what do you think the value of x will be? The value of x will be none. It is a special value when the computation, when some arithmetic computation, it doesn't make much sense arithmetically. So the result will be none. So let's just for curiosity, let's see what's the data type of none. It's a number. It is still a number. The data type is it's a number, but it's not a number. Now, can I check if n equal or equal none? False. It's a bit strange. If I say is x equal none, it says false. Although x is none. Yes. So here, if I want to check if a variable is none, I should use a special function called is none, and pass to it the function, pass to it the value, the variable, and then it will say true. So to summarize, if some computation, a nonsense computation such as multiplying a string with a value takes place, then what's the result of this computation? It's a none. None is of, what is the data type of none? Number. Now, if a variable has a none, be careful. If you want to check whether the variable is none or not none, don't use something like x equal none. It will be false. You should use a function called is none, and you give it the variable, and it will tell you whether it's none or not none. Those are design decisions that the JavaScript designers have decided. We need to be aware of them as JavaScript developers. So here is nothing rocket science. It's just some stuff that you need to be aware of, and that's how the JavaScript people designed it. So instead of throwing an exception, they go ahead with the computation, and they will the results of the computation will be none. And if you want to check, you should use is none. Don't check using equality, because even a variable has a none value. If you say equal none, it will tell you false. You should use is none. So be aware of this. Okay. If I want to check the data type of a particular variable, I use the type of. It's a function. I can call it with dot parentheses, or I can call it with parentheses. We already seen all of this already. Okay, for comments, if you want to add a comment to your program, single line is // and multi-line is /*. You put your comment and close it with */. Similar to Java, I guess. Okay, so we finished with variables and data types. The second skill you typically learn in a programming language are operators, arithmetic operators, logical operators, comparison, assignment. All of this is exactly the same as in Java. So we will not spend any time on this, and we move on. You can also compare variables using equality, using a double equal to compare variables. For example, here, I assign 5 to A and assign 4 to B. This one, if I say, is A equal to B, it will tell me false. It will be false. So this stuff is exactly the same as C and C++.
The last two operators.
This is the only thing I will explain. Yes. As I explained before, last session, we will only stop at things that are different. So this is all the same. What is really different in JavaScript? There is basically for checking equality, we can use double equal. So for example here, what do you think? 1 is 1 equal to 1 in double quote.
No.
No, this one will be true or false. This is a logical expression. It will give us a Boolean result.
Because this is a number, this will consider.
This one is a number. This one is a string. Yes. All agree? This is false. Okay, let's try. It's true.
It's comparing the value.
It's yes. Basically, here you need to be careful. In JavaScript, if you take two values of different types, here we have two values or two variables of different type, but the content is the same. So if you use double equal, they will be equal. The result will be true. Now, if you want to compare them, and only they will be equal if they match in terms of value and match in data type, then you should use triple equal. So what is the conclusion here?
Equals compares the value only and does not care about the type.
Yes, very good. It's auto-converts. Basically, it auto-converts one of the operators to same data type. And then it compares. So basically, it doesn't care about the type. As long as the value is the same, it will give you true. Now, here, not only the values must match, also the data type must match. Because this one, what is the data type of 1? Is a number. And data type of double quote 1? String. Because the data types are different, they are not equal. Okay, so you need to be careful here. In the most recommended way is just to use triple equal to make sure the values match. Depending what you do, but most of the time, maybe you are checking both the equality and the same data type. Anyway, be aware of this. This is unique to JavaScript compared to the languages that you already know. Okay, conditional statements. This one you already know. We have if-else statement, and we have the switch statement. Exactly the same syntax as in Java and C++. So here is an example of checking even and odd numbers. So here I'm declaring a number, assigning 10. If number modulus 2 is triple equal 0, then it is even, otherwise it is odd. So you're already familiar with this. The switch statement, exactly the same as in Java and C++. You do a switch, you put your variable, and based on the value of this variable, you say, in case it is 1, do this and break. In case it is 2, do this and break. Don't forget your break, otherwise it will continue. The same behaves exactly the same as in C++ and Java. Okay, so when you are doing an if statement, what do we follow the if statement with?
Condition.
A condition. So we do if, and between parentheses, we put a condition. Now, inside the condition, if the expression in the condition results on any of these, that condition will be false. Otherwise, it will be true. Yes? So, for example, if there is a condition, let's take a small example. So here, if I say if A times 2, for example. What do you think I will see in the output?
It will print.
Will it print this or will not print it? What do you think? Okay, let's look at this condition. What will be the value of this expression?
None.
None. So at the end it will be if none. So if none, it's a false. So according to this definition, according to the JavaScript designers, they said any of these values, if they happen to be the result of the expression that you put in if statement, if the result of the expression is any of these values, false, zero, empty, null, undefined, and none, these are considered false. And then in our case, what the output will be? Nothing. Okay? All right. So that's it for the if conditional statements. They are exactly the same. There is nothing really different, except these need to be aware of this. The loops. Again, the loops exactly the same as in Java and C++. We have the while loop, the do loop, the for loop. Now, what's the difference between these? You already know this. What's the difference between while and do? Yes, this is a pre-test loop. We test first. If it's true, we go ahead and repeat. Otherwise, we exit the loop. So how many times this loop will repeat?
Depending on
It could repeat 0 times. Because if the condition is true in the beginning, it will not even go inside. What about the do loop?
at least once.
It's a post-test loop. How many times the loop will repeat? At least once. Because we first do the work, then we test the condition. And the for loop, this is a counter-controlled loop. We have some counter, we keep repeating until that counter reaches certain value. So you're already familiar with this. This is just to show you how we display 10 numbers. This is a do loop. This is a for loop, exactly the same as the syntax you already know. What is a bit different is these two styles of loops that JavaScript brought along, and these what we will be using heavily, especially when we are dealing with arrays. So here's how. So what I'm doing here, I'm declaring a variable of sum, and I'm initializing it with 0. And then I am looping through every element of the array and then accumulating the values in this sum variable. So the best loop to loop through an array is to use the for of loop. The for of loop. Okay, so let's do this together very quickly. Okay, so here I will declare an array, nums. Let's say 1, 3, 5, and 6. By the way, this is how I declare an array. Just open the curly brace, the square brackets, and put the values separated by comma. This is an array. Now, I want to loop through an array. Of course, many ways to do it. The best way to do it in JavaScript is the for of loop. The for of loop. Please don't use the other styles. What I want to say here, when you learn a language, you need to adopt the features and the specific features of the language. Don't bring your old styles and try to kind of force them into the language. The other way around. So if there is something that is optimized or elegant for certain task, you should use that optimal way. Okay? So here I do for, declare a variable to store the value, each value that I will visit. So I'll say here num of nums. And then I'll open my curly brace and I'll say console.log num. Yep, is clear? The for of loop. All right. So please, whenever you have an array, use the for of loop to loop through it. While we will see more advanced where we don't even need the loop. But anyway, for now, keep it in mind. There is another loop called for in loop. For in loop. Okay, so to demonstrate this, yes, please.
elaborate on this loop? Try not before we get to for that.
Yes, please. Okay, so we have here an element. We have here an array. An array is made up of multiple elements. So a loop, for me to visit every element and do something with it. In this case, I'm just displaying it. I need to go through each element, visit every element. Now, to do this, I can use traditional loop, and I use an index going from 0 to size -1, and I can loop through this. Another more elegant way to do it, I do for of loop. I declare a variable. Why did I declare this variable? To store every element that I will visit. Yes, this is not a counter. It's the value, it's the variable to hold the value itself, to hold the value. So the first time, for of I will visit this one, then this one, then this one, this one. The first time, what's the value of num? 1. Then I go to the next one. What's the value of num? 3. And then I'm just displaying it. Yes? Okay, for in loop. So for me to demonstrate for in loop, let me show you. Let's declare an object. I'm declaring here an object. Let's say a person. I'm declaring an object. This is how I declare an object, using JSON notation, the JavaScript object notation. I give it a name, and then equals, open my curly brace, and then start defining the properties. This is the name, this is the first name, colon the value, comma, last name, colon the value. This notation is called JSON notation. Okay, very widely used as a data format to exchange data between applications. Now, if I just say here person, you can see this is the full object that I have, and I can access particular properties if I wish. Yes? Okay, now imagine, we will see this later on. I received this object from somewhere else, maybe from, I am on the client side, and I received this object from the server side. And let's imagine I don't know what the properties of these objects are. I have no idea. I know I have a person at my hand, but I don't know the properties. So for me to use the dot notation, if I want to use the dot notation, what do I need to know? I need to know the property name. I need to know that person has property called first name. Otherwise, I cannot use the dot notation. Yes? Okay. Now, suppose I have an object, I don't know what are the properties. So one way to discover the object is to loop through each property of the object using for in loop. For in loop. Okay? And the way it looks like this. This is very, very useful. Although this is useful if you don't know the properties of the object you are getting. Usually we know. Usually as developers we know what we're getting. But in case you just want to discover this object, you can do this. Okay? So in here, I am looping through every property and then displaying the property name and the value. Okay, so let's do it together very quickly. So what I'll do here, I will say for let prop in person, and I will do here console.log. I will log the property name and the property value, person prop. I will explain this further. Let's see if it will work. Yep, that's it. So you can see here what this is doing. I don't know what are the properties of this person. I'm looping through every property of person. What are the properties of person? First name, last name. So here is, I display it. Then I want the value of that property. So I'll say, person, please give me this property. And I'll get the value. Okay? So this will become clearer when we get to objects, but just keep in mind these two useful loops, extra styles of loops that we have in JavaScript. The for-of loop, what do we use the for-of loop for? To go through arrays, to iterate through an array. What about the for-in loop? To loop through or to discover the properties of a particular object, to access the properties and the values of those properties. Yes, please.
The last thing, person, and then you have the brackets. Just like array list.
Don't worry, I will explain this later when we get to objects. For now, just kind of.
You're showing person with the first name, person.
Yes, because really, we jump in a little bit ahead of ourselves. But anyway, really an object in JavaScript is nothing but a hash table or a dictionary. You're familiar with hash table? You know a map or hash table? It has a key, and a value. This is what really an object in JavaScript is. An object is a key and a value. The key is the property name. For example, the F name, and the L name. Okay. So I can access this one either by saying person.fname and person.lname, or I can say person, open the curly brace, and put the name of the property. Because really an object in JavaScript is nothing but a hash map, or a map, or a dictionary. There are different names of this data structure. It has a key and a value. But further explanation will come when we start covering objects in more details. Loops are clear? Okay, let's move on. All right, the next thing you typically learn in a language are arrays. We already seen them. So this is how I declare an array. I open a square brackets and start defining the comma delimited list of values. They could be either numbers, integers, or if I wish, I could mix. This is not allowed in Java, except if you make the data type as object. But in JavaScript, because it's dynamically typed, you can mix values of different type in an array, no problem. If you want to have an array of arrays or a matrix, you can do it this way. This is an array. Yes, a two-dimensional array. This is an array, and every element is itself an array. So an array of arrays or a matrix. I already explained this. This is how the best way to loop through an array, but this is the traditional way of looping through it. Arrays in JavaScript are dynamic. You can add elements, you can remove elements. So if you want to add an element to the end of the array, you use push method. So you take the name of the array.push and you give it the value. It will add that value to the end of the array. If you want to remove an element from the tail, you remove the last element of the array, you go to the array name.pop, it will be removed and the value will be given to you. You usually say, let's say, let last element equal array.pop, you get the value and that value will be removed from the array. You can also insert, so push, add the element at the end of the array. And unshift, add it at the beginning of the array. Pop removes an element from the tail, and shift removes the element from the head. Okay, there are plenty of other methods that arrays have. For example, if you have this array, and you just want to display them with a pipe between each one, you can just say nums.join, and you give what is the delimiter you want to use. For example, I can do something like this. I can say nums.join and I can join these guys with this. I get a string with all the elements separated by the pipe. Okay. All right. So deleting element. This is very, very powerful. Yes, please.
If you go back to,
Yeah.
there is the number dot unshift and you put 0. Do you have to put the value and the parameters?
Shift.
The number dot unshift.
Unshift. Let me see. Unshift. Insert. Yes. Sorry. Yes, you're right. So unshift, you are inserting a new value at the head. So you have to supply which new value you are inserting. It could be 10, it could be 100, whatever value. This is a value. But for shift, because you are removing, you don't need to provide a parameter. Okay, deleting from an array. So this, what we saw here, this unshift, sorry, the shift and the pop only removes from the end and only removes one element. Now, if you want to remove things from within the array, any place, and you want to remove more than one element, those will not help you. So here is the most versatile. You can forget all others and just use this. It covers all use cases. So in here, splice, what it does, it goes to certain index. Remember, the index starts from 0 to size -1. And you say, go to this element and remove these number of elements. How many elements you want to remove? It's kind of you get two arrays with splice. So let's give it a try. Let's try this.
Starts from index 1.
0.
No, let's say
Yeah, deleting.
my array dot index 1 and how many ones. So it's basically element 1.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. Let's take a look. So what I have here, I have an array. How many elements in this array? 4 elements. 4. A, B, C, D. Yes? No, I want to go to element A, which is B. Sorry, element 1, which is B. Because remember, what is the index of A? 0. Index of B? 1. Index of C? 2, and so on. So I want to go to element 1, and let's say I want to remove 2 elements. So the resulting, this will do 2 things. It will take this B and C and put it in this array called remove, and then what will happen to my array? It will have A and D. Very good. So there is one thing here missing, let. Okay, so I'll say removed. What removed will have? B and C. And what my array will have? A and B. A and D. This is so powerful, very heavily used, and to split arrays into multiple parts, into 2 in this case. Yes, please.
But if you go to B and C,
Yes.
then it also shifts the elements.
Not shift.
So do we still have an array list of?
Okay.
Do we still have an array list of 4 elements, or now different 2
Two elements. So basically, we remove this B and C. Yes. So remove. So the original array, how many elements left? 2. And these things that we removed, B and C, did we throw them away? No, we assigned them to another array. So the removed elements form a new array called removed. And what is the content of this removed? Is the element that were removed, which is in our case B and C. And what remain in the original? 2, which is the A and the D.
If we said that let my array equal my array dot splice, what happened? The new array will have A, B, that's it.
Splice is a function. It takes 2 parameters. From where you want to splice and how many.
No, I mean that if we change the name from remove to my array.
What do you mean? Like
Let my array.
because I already declared it, so I have to. You mean put the original one here? Here is my array. This is my original array.
And
Then
the array that we يعني it's the same array that we can remove يعني the same the second line
okay.
just, remove the word remove and put my array up instead
In here?
yeah let my array
Yeah, I see, of course. Of course, it will override. Like, if I do this, both of them will have what? B and C. So it will go to it will go to element 1, which is B, yes? And how many it will remove? 2. Now, my array will be, because I'm overriding, so what will be left in here? It will be left with A and D. So what will be in my array? No, in my array, this is a good question for the exam. What will be in my array, in this scenario?
B and C.
B and C, yes. Because I'm assigning the result of the splice. The result of the splice is what? New array, B and C. But maybe by mistake or my intention, sorry, I shouldn't do let. Because it's already defined. If the variable is already defined, you cannot define it again. Okay, so you see here my array becomes B and C. My array becomes B and C. Yes, but this is nothing to do with splice because you are assigning a new value to my array. Yes. Okay.
Now you only have one array list. Before we had removed and my array.
Yes.
Now
Yes.
we only have one.
One, because that's what Ali wants. Ali, yes? Abdul Latif, sorry. This is what Abdul Latif asked me to do. Ali is here. Yes, is clear? Okay. All right. So keep in mind this one will be used heavily in this course, splice. There are more advanced methods. I will come to them after I cover functions. You first need to understand functions, then we come back to this. This is very important, so you will practice this in the lab. Okay. Destructuring. This is a new concept in JavaScript. Let me explain it to you very quickly through an example. This is called array destructuring. What this array destructuring means, I'm extracting some elements from the array, okay, without using a loop, So let me show you. So let's say we have an array like this. How many elements I have in this array? 4. Let's say I want to extract the first 2 colors. So I will say here let first color is first, or second color, and the rest. Is it 3 dots? Yes, 3 dots. I will explain it shortly. Others. Equal colors. This new syntax is called array destructuring. It's kind of I'm taking that array and splitting it into multiple variables. So what will happen? So here I am kind of declaring 3 variables. What are these 3 variables I'm declaring? First color, second color, and others. Don't worry about this dot, dot, dot. So, and then what I'm doing, I'm taking an array and assigning it to these 3 variables. So what will happen? So the first color will be red, the second color will be green, and the third and the fourth, the rest, I put in front of the variable name 3 dots. And saying, oh, put for me these 2, the first 2 in these 2 variables, and the remaining, which are in our case, the blue and the yellow, I want them to go into others. Yes? So this syntax is called array destructuring. It's a more concise way of doing it rather than using loops and things like that. So if I say first color, what will be the value? Red. Second color? Second color? Green. Others? It's up to me what I want. For example, I am interested in the first two and others. Let's say I have a list of competitions students. I am interested in the first and the second and others. Yeah. Okay. So what will be others in this case?
Blue and red.
It will be an array of blue and red. I made this capital. This is not good. Variable names should always start with lowercase. Sorry, others. Yes? So this syntax is called array destructuring. Of course, you can do all of this using loops and using other techniques, but this one is much easier, more concise to do, way of doing it.
And your original array stays the same?
Yes, original array stays the same.
You're only copying?
Yes, only copying. Very good. Yes, the original array is untouched. So if I say here colors, I still have my original array. Very good question, yes. So, all right. So I can also use it for other purposes. Okay, let's say CLS. Sorry. Okay, let me give you a small example where this can be used. So let's say let x equal 10 and y equal 20. Yes? Now let's say I want to already, okay, no problem. Let me define A and B. So A, the value of A is 10 and the value of B is 20. Now let's say I want to swap those values. B go into A and A goes into B. Swap. Swap the values. How can I do it? No, there is no function swap. No, in traditional way. How you do that?
Create a third variable.
You have to create a third variable. If you have two cups and you want to swap them, you have to bring a third one. There is no other way. Yes? So using this little technique of, so remember, this is the value of A, and this is the value of B. Yes? Using this array destructuring, I can swap them without a third variable. So what I will do here, A, B equals BA. That's it. So A becomes 20 and B becomes 10. This is just an example usage. It's not very interesting, but just to show you a small example. But the main thing to keep in mind is that this object, the array destructuring, what I'm doing, I'm taking my array, assigning the first element to the first variable, second element to the second variable, and the remaining to this other variable. This is called array destructuring. There is another interesting function. Let me explain it very shortly. What I have here, by the way, JavaScript has a lot of built-in functions. One of them happens to be max. The class is called math, and one of the functions in math is max. So what I can do, I can give it some numbers. What do you think the max will be? 100. Yes? Now I have this very useful function, but remember I have numbers up there I defined earlier. I want to use this function with that array. First, let me show you the array. Okay, which one is the maximum? 6. So I want to use this one with nums. Unfortunately, it didn't work. Why? Because max expects a comma delimited list of values. It does not accept an array. Okay? So that's why in JavaScript, they came up with this spread operator. You come to an array, you do ... in front of it, and it will spread it into consecutive values. yes, that will go as parameters to a function. So, and this will happily work. So this operator is called the spread operator. Okay, it is very useful for two reasons. It is useful when you have a function that expects arguments, but unfortunately you have an array, you don't have the arguments. So if you do spread, what happens to the array? To a list of arguments. Another use case is, let's say we have two arrays. Yes, please.
If we use max on array of strings, it will get the max based on the number of characters.
No, max is for numeric value. Yes. Max is for numeric, yes. Okay, so let's say I have two arrays. One is called, one is warm, and these are the values. Okay, and let's say I want to concatenate these two into a third array. Of course, there is a concat function that you can use to concatenate, but there is a more elegant way of doing it. So let's seasons equals, and basically I will spread the first array, and then I will spread the second array. And then what I will get? A new array that has both. This is called the spread operator. Yeah? Okay. Yes, please.
You used also the 3 dots on variable before. When you declared others, you put 3 dots.
Yes. In this scenario, it means the remaining of this array, the remaining will go in here. Yeah. In here, it has a different role. In here, it has one role. In the other context, it has a different role. So what is the role of these 3 dots here? The role of these 3 dots here?
3 dots? Where?
It just says the remaining.
Yeah, the remaining.
Yes. In here, what's the role of these 3 dots? Convert this array into a list of arguments. So it's a different role. Same syntax, different role. Okay, so I already explained this. I also already explained this. Okay, there is another data structure called set. What set means, you can store in it objects. In this case, I'm storing strings. The main advantage of set is that if you try to add an element that already exists, it will not add it. It will ignore it. Because a set has only unique values. And you can go through and display them. There's also a map. This is a map. Keys and values. You can create a map. And you go set, this is the key, this is the value. And you can go and look through them. Okay. One more thing, functions. So we've seen arrays, now we look at the functions. So a function, you're already familiar with what a function is. And basically to declare a function in JavaScript, you use the keyword function, followed by the name of the function, a parameter, and then the body. In the body, you do some work and you return some value. Okay? So that's one syntax of doing it. This is another syntax, exactly the same. I create a function, but it does not have a name. What I'll do with this function, I assign it to a variable. And then I call that variable. There is a third way. So let's do it together very quickly. Let's take this example of double. All right, this is CLS. This is my function called double, and I can call it double 4 will give me 8. Okay, that's one way of declaring this function. Another way of declaring it is let double equal function. I don't give it a name. I just give it the definition. And code exception.
Which function name?
No, I don't need the name. Function. Ah, yes. I forgot to put the parameter. Yes. Yes, already defined, because I already defined it. And then I can call it. Let's say 5, it will give me 10. Okay, a more elegant way of defining a function is using a new syntax called the arrow function. A more concise, very concise way. Have a look. So all I say double. What double does, it takes a value x and returns x times 2. This is the most concise way of writing this function. So what it does, it takes one parameter and transforms it into another value. So here, I'll say double. You need to focus with me. You will go to the lab to practice this and you will not get any idea. Okay, so this is the most elegant way of doing it using the new syntax called arrow functions. And the arrow function, what it does is, this is the input. I declare the input. And then arrow, and this is the transformation I do, and return it.
After the arrow, you write the body.
You write the body without return. Okay. You can even write it in a more concise way if you wish. You don't need this parenthesis. It's just it takes an x and transforms it. Okay, one more thing I will show you and let you go. So remember our nums? Suppose I want to visit every element of the array and double the numbers. So 1 will become 1, 3, 6, 5, 10, 6 will become 12. Sorry?
Nums, and then the equal, and then the big one. After that, is it possible to make like a number?
No, in here you have to use a loop. The only way is to use a loop. Loop through every element and call the double. For off, yes. But there is a much better way. And this is what you will learn in the lab and practice. Arrays have very powerful functions. One of them called map. I'll say here nums, map. Map means go to every element of the array. And then basically take every element, put it in A, and double it. Double A. E here stands for an element. And I will get a new array doubled. Okay? One more, I'll let you go. Here, I want to double them and only show the ones that are greater or equal than 10. Yes? So I can map to transform the array into another array, and then I can filter. And I can filter and say, please only give me the elements where the element is greater than or equal 10. And then I get only these two elements. So this is really the power of JavaScript, is that you don't use, you are here, this is called declarative programming. You don't say how you do things. You say what you want, and magically some stuff will happen on your behalf. You don't need to use a loop here. I am creating here a function. Basically, an array has a function map, and I'm passing to it a function. So in JavaScript, I'm sure now it's a bit scary and a bit confusing, but in JavaScript, a function can be passed as a parameter to another function. This is very common in JavaScript. And this is an example of use cases, of passing a function as an argument to another function. So a map is a function that visits every element, but which says, what do you want me to do when I visit every element? I want you to double them. Then what else do you want me to do? I want you to filter the results based on this condition. Yes, please. It's a bit confusing, of course. You will practice this and see it more in the lab, so you get familiar with it more.
The funniest part
Yes.
is that if you make a normal function, go to the left of it, you'll see a bell, press on it, and then it will change it to this. Literally having to do with this.
Yes, but when you learn, you should never use the tool. When you learn, you should do things yourself. Until you master it, then you can use it.
Easy stuff like
No, for you may be easy, but for you to really grasp the concept, you really need to do it yourself. You do it yourself, then once you are familiar with it, you use any tool, it's up to you. It's not a problem. But if you don't do it yourself, you will not understand it.
With this function, did you edit your original array or to make a new array?
Very good. Very good. Original array intact and changed. New array get created. Okay, so this is important. This style of programming is called functional programming. In functional programming, the input is never changed. A new output is produced without impacting the original input. Sorry.
New array.
If I want it, I can assign it. In here, I'm just displaying it immediately. This is basically greater 10. Yes, and I can say greater 10, and I'll get 10 and 12. And my numbers are still this untouched, still the same the way they were. Okay, you know, I rushed through this a bit, but anyway, this is just to give you a taste, and in the lab, inshallah, you will practice this heavily.